Good morning.
Happy Friday. Welcome, everybody.
It is Friday. It's day 4. It is day 4
Day 4
of our discussion this week on
love. You happy?
I need sound effects for what I do. This is when your
Hopefully
husband's
it
winning.
works. Hopefully it works.
Yeah, your husband's winning when there are sound effects to your body movements. They just show up. I need like theme music.
There's some body movements I don't want to present on the show. You've told me I couldn't.
Well, we're talking about love this week, so you know what? Hey, we have comments. Good morning. Happy Friday, beautiful souls. Annie says, this is Facebook user, and I'm pretty sure this is Shane because I could see Shane in the group. And you're so cool, Shane. But you should click the StreamYard link so that you can connect to our broadcast. If you want us to show your face on your comments.
Shane likes to be anonymous.
He's incognito. Yeah. I don't watch these.
He's lurking in the shadows.
Lurker. Yeah, so actually, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into that because now that we've seen what it looks like to us when you don't click the StreamYard link, we just see Facebook users. So if you would find people of Facebook land this morning, I would love it if you would click the StreamYard link in the private Facebook group. So if you're in our private Facebook support group for health and wellness, make sure that you're clicking that StreamYard link in the description, because then we can see your face when you comment. We can bring it up on our broadcast and we can have a discussion with you. We love that. So that's what we're here for this morning. So make sure you're clicking that StreamYard link to connect to our broadcast. The other link that everybody has is going to be the YouVersion Bible app link. And that's just going to take you to the study that we're using to structure our discussion around this week about love. And make sure you're clicking that if you want to follow along. It'll take you to the YouVersion Bible app on mobile if you want to download the app. If you don't, take it to your desktop computer and go and just go to the website, and it will take you right to the study that we're on this week so you can follow along.
And if you are new to our broadcast, we just wanted to, first of all, welcome you to today's broadcast, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your day, your morning, whatever, your time. We really appreciate that because we know everybody's busy.
Absolutely.
But the thing is that we need to really focus in on what God has for us. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know us, my name's Javie.
I'm Jessica.
And we are with the Underdog Ninja Foundation. And what is the Underdog Ninja Foundation? Well, we're here. We formed this nonprofit foundation mm-hmm. to help people that are struggling with heart disease. They're struggling with life. They're struggling to get out of this dark place that this disease kind of mm-hmm. leaves us in. We don't know what life is going to be like or what life will look like moving forward, or even if we have a life moving forward. And we here at the Underdog Ninja Foundation, we want to spread the news of hope that mm-hmm. there is life.
Right.
There is a full life ahead of you.
Right.
Okay. But how do we get there? We're here to help guide you through the process. And there are 3 things that we believe that will help guide you to your new life while you're fighting heart disease. And that is faith, character, and action. Now, we're here every Tuesday through Saturday.
Not Sunday. I won't be here.
Tuesday through Saturday mornings, having these discussions. These discussions are around a devotional that we have curated, okay, around different moments in life, different things in life. Okay, sometimes it's very deep and serious. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just funny, and so we could not take ourselves so seriously. But we help guide you through that and help direct you towards your faith in God, your relationship in God. And we start that as our foundation. And that foundation helps create our character. You might be a person of great character, but the thing is if you are a person of great character, you do understand what I'm talking about when I say that's something that we continually have to work at.
Yeah.
And when we are faced with such adversity, that really challenges that character that we have. So we have to start adapting in order to overcome. And how do we overcome? That is by action. We have to put all these things in. We have these things all in place, but we have to take action upon it, right?
Right.
So we believe that those three things are going to help you move forward in life while you're fighting adversity. We do speak about other things. Heart diseases are our passion. This is what I fight every day, what we have to battle every day. But we also acknowledge that there are people out there and people that we want to help that are fighting other adversities, either other diseases or other circumstances in their life.
You make a good point. That's true. I mean, I wanted to bring up after you were done, I wanted to make sure people understand. I think we haven't been super clear lately about, because we have different broadcasts we do for different things. We have this discussion that we do each morning, Tuesday through Saturday, and we bring up that we're with Underdog Ninja Foundation. That's our nonprofit organization where we focus solely on heart disease. That foundation is to support the heart disease community and programs for heart disease. Okay, but we also are health and wellness coaches, life coaches, and we deal with but we coach people with other major medical and health issues. So like our coaching program, which is not part of our nonprofit, we have a private group coaching program that is for people fighting all kinds of things. So we do focus on all kinds of health and wellness issues. Our nonprofit is specifically for the heart disease community though. And so that's why we talk about different things sometimes on our shows. We just say, in case you're fighting something else, this is applicable to you too. Okay. So we do different things. And then we also have our Heart of an Underdog, our podcast show that we also do. It's another show. And that's specifically talking about people overcoming major odds with their health, with their, physical or mental health. And those are the things that we tackle on that show. So we do varying things, but and that's why we talk about the foundation on this show, because our devotionals we started doing a year ago, our morning discussions here, we're based in helping the heart disease community. And so we stuck with, making sure our discussions were part of our what we contribute to the nonprofits programs. And that's why we talk about that here.
Yeah, exactly right. So you'll hear us talk about heart disease quite a bit, but these discussions really apply to every aspect of our lives when facing adversity, when facing, even a broken relationship or a death in the family,
right?
Or depression, and of course other diseases like cancer or diabetes or things like that.
Well, and if you're fighting heart disease, you're also fighting all kinds of things in life. I mean, you have deaths in the family, you have depression, possibly.
The whole point is to show you and to help you and guide you to a life that God has promised you.
Yeah.
That God has for you. But many of us haven't tapped into that because we let all the other junk that's happening in this sinful world overtake us and cloud everything that's really happening. And so our aim here is to kind of clear that up, help set you above all the busyness, all the junk, all the noise that's happening, and help you see what God has for you moving forward. So this week, it's been a great week. We were talking about love, and yesterday we were talking about how those other things that the enemy has really just infiltrated our culture with hate and bitterness against one another that has divided us as not only a country, as human beings.
Yeah.
And so we don't look at each other, our neighbor, as ourselves. We look at them and make a judgment, either whether it's skin color or culture or where they're from,
or just what we think they should be doing in a traumatic situation, even like in our marriage or something.
Right. But the source is, one of the things, what God commanded us to do is love our neighbor like ourselves, as we do ourselves. But the thing is many of us don't. We don't even know who we are.
Right.
So we're trying to dig in to really understanding what God's love is and accepting that love despite what's happened to you, despite what people have done to you, people say about you, and maybe some things that you've done to yourself. And that you need to shed that shame. You need to shed the bitterness, the anger, the just the attitude of hate.
Right.
Okay. And embrace love more frequently and what that looks like.
Well, and exactly right. And the thing is that that's what we've been trying to do this week, is to apply love in a way to our conversation and our discussion that is applicable to more than just heart disease. Like, while we have our title this week as Loving After Heart Disease, it is really the just the core example of what we're talking about, because we've been talking about all kinds of things this week, all kinds of different relationships, different examples, different situations in life where we fail to love because of all kinds of reasons. So yesterday we were talking about not loving ourselves. What kind of excuses do we make that we like cop outs that we lean upon, crutches we lean upon in order to make excuses for us not to be able to love someone, or just love in general. And why can't we love? And then, we talked about that yesterday. And so one of the things that we had left off yesterday was something, and I'm trying to remember what we left off with now.
We should have show notes.
We're just having conversations. We're not writing anything down. It'll come to me. But
anyway, look, we've done a bunch of talking. We are not even started.
I know. Let's jump in. Let's jump in. Hey,
let's see what God has to say. And we need to shut up.
Do you see what Shane wrote? You don't tell me what to do.
I know.
All right, you guys, let's jump in. Okay, so this says love endures all things. So today we're still talking about love, right? And how it endures things, how it's brave, how it's kind and patient. So what does it mean to endure, though? The definition in this verse means to bear bravely and calmly. When you love people, you will have to bear with them bravely and calmly. This is not always the easiest thing to do, but it is possible. So bearing means like carrying, like bearing someone's burdens, right? Helping them carry those. Love is brave. There is an aspect of love that puts you in a position to be vulnerable. You open your heart with the feelings and with your feelings and thoughts, and at times it can be scary. If you have lived any amount of time, you have been hurt by people you opened up to. You have experienced it, and it doesn't feel right. However, I want to encourage you not to allow the pain in the past to stop the joy of the future. And really, just really quick before I go any further, that sentence encapsulates everything we've been saying this week.
Yes.
Not to allow the pain in the past, or even your present pain, to stop the joy of the future. Do not allow all of these things to limit your capacity for love. You have to be brave to open up to people after being hurt. When you come to that point in any relationship, the pain from the past comes back to your memory, and you start to think about whether you want to open up again. Don't allow the wrong people in your past to hold you back from the right people in your future. Amen. Love is calm. When those feelings come up, love will enable you to respond calmly. I know it's easier to respond with your feelings, but it is definitely not better. Do you remember the last time you allowed your feelings to control how you responded? How did that work out for you? A soft answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stir up anger in Proverbs 15:1. When you take the time to respond calmly, you make room for love. Sometimes the calmness of someone's voice can change the entire environment. Respond in love, be brave and calm, and when you do, you will change everything. So our confession today should be, today I will respond in love. I will be brave and not allow the pain of the past to determine my future. I will respond with a calm tone. Since a soft answer turns away wrath, it makes room for love. I will walk in victory because I will walk in love. And our verses today are 1 Corinthians 13:7. Love never gives up, never loses faith. It always is hopeful and endures through every circumstance. Proverbs 15:1 says a gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare. And I want to make sure I point out that it's so interesting, this whole idea that this is talking about is a soft answer. So it doesn't mean we shouldn't have our emotions and we're not valid, but when we let our emotions direct and dictate every response, it really is not a good thing. We just end up saying, as people go, well, you just say things you don't mean. Why would we ever say something we don't mean? Why would a person do that? Because you're not thinking through, what do I actually mean? You're letting your emotions dictate. They're going before you have a chance to be like, hey, wait a minute, guys, we need to talk about this. Do I actually mean that? Do I actually feel that way? Or is this a fight or flight response? Is this a deep-seated traumatic anger response that maybe isn't even directed at that person? Why am I responding this way? We don't take the time in an emotional situation to think about why we feel that way. Of course not. We're just responding. And then when we say things in those moments, instead of chilling out and realizing that, hey, we're all humans. Maybe I'm just responding in emotion, which is valid, but that doesn't mean that it belongs directed at that person. Doesn't mean it belongs in the moment. Doesn't mean that I should say things before I think them through. We all have done it. And I have to personally say that that never works out. It just never does. Even if you don't say anything harsh or things that you'd be sorry later for, you haven't thought through how you really feel. So now that you've had an entire conversation about something you haven't thought through, you have to have it again. You end up having to have the conversation again anyway, because you're like, well, how I really feel is like this. And so, I mean, I have to kind of like retract and kind of figure out like, well, I was just talking in the moment, because I just needed to vent or whatever. Okay. But it's not clear. It's not concise. Sometimes it gets misconstrued. Sometimes we don't even know how we feel in the moment. We're just reacting instead of having an actual response to something. So when we have a calm answer, it makes us calm down to say this. Well, I'm going to make room, like space, right? I'm going to make room for not only loving this person that's in front of me or on the other end of the phone or computer or whatever, and I'm also going to make room for myself, and I'm going to make room for God. When you make room for thought and space to not react in the moment, you're making room for God to do something in that moment. And when we jump ahead of him, we talked about this, or we not on here, but you and I yesterday were talking about that, jumping ahead of God.
Yeah.
It's a big problem. When you're jumping ahead of what God's doing, you're jumping ahead and you're not letting timing be timing. And that also applies for in the moment when you're having an emotional reaction to something in a conversation or an argument or a confrontation or a situation where it's traumatic or it's chaotic and everybody's responding and reacting. And, the calm person in the room is always the person in control, first of all, because their emotions aren't dictating everything. But also it gives room for God to do something before we jump ahead of him. We're not just diving into something before God has a chance to tell us how to react, to breathe life into the room.
Right. This is the thing. We've all been wronged by people that we've trusted. Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that we've confided in. And that trust, the feeling of that broken trust, I think most people can relate to. But oftentimes we use that and we take that hurt and we drag it into, like we've been talking about all week, we drag it into other circumstances. We allow it to dictate decisions in our life, and whether or not we engage in certain relationships or how we engage in those relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it may be similar to what had happened to us, or we avoid it altogether because we don't want to experience that pain again.
Right.
But that's, again, allowing what has happened to you, allowing that evil to continue to, you're allowing it to win. You're allowing it to change you in a negative way.
Yeah.
Okay. Why can't that change you in a positive way?
Right.
Isn't it braver and stronger that you're not allowing that hurt and pain that has been inflicted upon you to change who you are, change your character, change whether you're going to see people as they are and love people.
Right.
Look, we've had trust broken. That doesn't mean that we need to walk around being skeptical and not trust each other, because especially when you have never been that person before, Yeah, look, I say the world would call that being naive. Then, if that's the case, then we're calling God naive.
Well, I was just going to say, I think something I'm kind of feeling right now, kind of hearing is I think a lot of times when we have trust issues, I mean, keep in mind, valid. I mean, trust issues are valid. I mean, if you've been hurt and you've been wronged and, how do you move forward with trusting the next person or whatever? Like, I get that. But don't we learn, or shouldn't we be, right? Learning from those experiences, what to look for, red flags, situations
Okay,
where, my point is, sorry, I know you want to say something so bad. I just want to finish this. But my point is that I don't think it's that we don't trust people as much, okay, as we don't trust ourselves. And here's why I say that. Because most people will be like, no, it's because I don't trust other people. But think about this for a second. When I get hurt by somebody, I don't just not trust anybody else. Like, I don't trust that person, right? Maybe I don't trust that situation as much. But I also, I want to be able to move forward in love with the next interaction, right? So I need to be able to trust myself enough to move to the next interaction, the next relationship, the next situation, environment, whatever, with enough sense and enough growth from the last relationship, situation, circumstance, whatever, to move into that new one and understand what to look for so that I don't get hurt. Does that make sense?
well, yeah, and that's what we talked a little bit about yesterday about being able to.
Good morning, Monica.
Good morning, Monica. To be able to discern
Right.
from the lessons that you've learned along the way, based off of maybe mistakes or based off of that pain. Okay,
Right.
what have you learned, but not letting it affect you as a person, letting it affect your character.
Right. You don't
Okay,
become this like jaded, skeptical, cynical person who doesn't let anybody in, doesn't share their feelings, and doesn't have relationships.
it becomes unreasonable, and that's why we're talking about being patient and kind, listening to what God is saying. But also, look, if we're a hothead and we're allowing these emotions to overtake us, we can't get the sense of what's really going on here.
The red flags. We can't see the situation.
We start making judgment calls that are way off base.
Right.
Why? Because we're acting like a hothead. We're allowing the emotions in the situation to overtake us, and we don't see what's plainly going on in front of us. However, when we do see those red flags, we do need to pay attention. Okay, so for example, just yesterday, let me backtrack. So I grew up in a town that there lots of crime, lots of a lot of criminal activity around me.
Yeah.
Right, a lot of
Yeah.
Look, in this town, it's really a culture of mistrust. Why? Because there's a lot of people victimizing each other.
Yeah.
Again, what I said yesterday, we get victimized and then we go ahead and spread that victimhood to everybody else. And where is that helping? How's that helping us? And how's that helping the community? Well, that's a town I grew up in, okay, where you have a lot of people always watching their back. You grow up being very self-aware, watching what is going on, okay?
Yeah.
And
I would say you're hyper aware of everything going on.
Okay.
All the time. Yeah.
So, and that's just
it's not a bad thing.
It's just instinct.
Yeah.
So yesterday, we got off a call like this. We were doing a Zoom call yesterday. And what I didn't know while we're doing this call is it's funny because our girls are observant too.
Yeah, they are very observant.
I closed up and I looked out the window, and there was this car that was that is not familiar in our neighborhood. And there was this car sitting out in front of our house across the street. And that's the first sign. Okay, what's that? Who's that?
Yeah. You're like, what's this car doing?
But now and then, because there's the teenage guy
Yeah.
that lives across the street. Sometimes he has friends come over or whatever, and it is summertime, so people come visit. But this car was different, and there was an individual sitting in there.
For like an hour.
But I didn't know that at the time.
No, the girls told us that.
Right, they told us that later. But the thing is this individual sitting in the car. I'm like, okay. There was no one else in the car.
Right.
And but then that got my attention. So what is he doing?
Yeah.
And then I started noticing that the guy had a phone in his hand that he was sticking outside.
He's like pointing, clearly either videoing or taking
of
pictures.
Houses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay.
He's casing the neighborhood.
That's not right.
Yeah.
So I tried to figure out what was going on. I went, and the girls were telling me that this car had been parked outside for a while. I'm like, all right, and we're about to go. I mean, we had an appointment, so I'm like, all right, well, let's get everything together, and then we'll see what's going on.
Right.
I walked out.
We opened the door,
and this guy quickly starts his car and takes off.
Yeah.
I'm like,
luckily we got the license plate.
Got the license plate number and everything else.
Yeah.
And then,
but then bolts.
Then we about 20 minutes later, because we have cameras on our house, and we could see them remotely. So we're driving to our appointment, and my wife pulls up the view of a camera. Sure enough, the guy's back.
Yeah, he's back, and he's sitting there in front of our house, and we're just like, okay.
So we call the police.
Yeah.
And
we alerted the police to what he was doing, and we never talked to the guy. We were just like, okay, well.
He wouldn't even look at me because I was looking. We were looking straight.
We were trying to dead stare him down, but yeah, he wasn't.
But the thing is my whole point is, I'm hyper alert.
Yeah.
With wherever we
go.
It's
up to
but that's just part of how I've grown up.
But you learned that you aren't jaded towards everything. You're just look. The way to interact in anything going forward, what we're trying to say is that, and you make an excellent example, because now you can be prepared to not be taken advantage of because you're aware of what's going on. You understand red flags. That's what your point is, right? Yeah.
Understanding the real red flags, understanding what's really going on. Now, I didn't overreact.
Right.
Okay.
We didn't call the police till he came back. We're not calling police on every car in front of our house.
I gave it a moment. I wanted to see what this guy was doing and what it was all about. Right. But at the same time, I needed to use discretion and wisdom. And so, because I didn't know what this guy was doing. I didn't know his intentions. I didn't know if he was high and what really was going on. So it's not always the best idea.
And the weirdest thing is
approach.
Well, no, we didn't approach him. That's the thing. That's what we were talking about. A calm answer.
Yeah.
So we practiced a calm answer. We did not confront this individual. We didn't prejudge. We just watched and said, well, what's really going on? And then when we saw what was really going on, then we, made sure we did some, protective measures to make sure the authorities understand this person's what they're doing. And we didn't even read into it. We just said, this is what he was doing. You guys figure that out. We didn't say, well, this must be why or anything. That we didn't, because here's the thing is I don't want to be doing that to people, but we have to be aware and we have to be careful. This is what we're talking about is instead of moving into new situations based on old tapes, old situations, old trauma, old experiences, old hurts, right? Instead of taking all of that and just overreacting to everybody or isolating yourself and pushing everybody away, right? It's on you to be more aware and more vigilant over your own self, over your own vulnerability or whatever. And a lot of people go, well, that's why I put up walls. No, because the problem is that that's what we do. We put up walls, then we stop sharing, then we stop loving. That's what the enemy wants us to do. Our whole point is that all these things stop us from loving because we don't want to get hurt. We can avoid getting hurt and still be vulnerable because we can be vigilant and understand the red flags, and we can move around those in a way that we don't allow ourselves to get hurt like last time. That's our whole point. It's up to you to navigate a situation with more wisdom moving forward. So while this is kind of an arbitrary example, a little bit, it's not a relationship example.
No,
it's the same.
But it's how it affects me.
Yeah.
Because my whole point to that too was the old me, I would have let that stir up in my mind, and I would had let that take its own life. I would have given it its own life. I would have let my emotions, my fear, my protective instincts to overtake me, and I would have developed scenarios in my head.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to lie, that does start to happen, but I don't act upon it. The old me would have acted upon it by allowing the fear and the sense of, well, I got to protect my family.
I would say even a few years ago, you would have lost sleep over that.
Yes, and that's my point.
And you
I would have been up all night.
Looking out the window. Totally. Oh, yeah, because of the old trauma from growing up that way. From, yes, exactly, judging that this must be their whole plan. Because keep in mind, our girls were like, well, other people were talking to him. Like, he didn't leave when anybody else came out of their house. He left when we came out. He was specifically looking at our house, and we weren't making it up, because we were trying to be like, are we making that up? But it was us. And so it's not a good feeling, right? But we have to not let the fear overtake us, and the red flags and the things.
We have to trust that God ultimately is in control.
Right.
And he's protecting our home.
But that's the same in relationships. That's the same in our marriage. That's the same. Think about it. Does God want your marriage to be destroyed by heart disease? Probably not. And so we need to let him take the lead, right, on that together as a couple. So let's just switch it back to, like, what we're talking about. We're talking about how to love after heart disease, right?
No, I want to talk more about strangers working in my neighborhood.
But it's a great it's a great example, though, because it's like, look how far this goes. It's the same train or chain of emotions. It's the same human response that's why I'm trying to take it back to marriage and heart disease, because it is the same. It's the same. We don't think it's the same. It's the same response that we have to this thought process, and this response that we have in life to being hurt and being vulnerable in situations. So let's say, it's the same thing as if you were assaulted and all of a sudden you can't go out in public.
Right.
Why? But think about it. Instead of going and getting something to protect yourself with and getting self-defense classes and just using better judgment. Not that you were using bad judgment, but just using better judgment than we were using before, being more vigilant, like doing things that make us feel safe, like in a relationship, like in a marriage. Communication makes us feel safe. After we're dealing with a chaotic situation like heart disease, what would make us feel safe? Well, more communication, more understanding, being more patient with each other, talking more about, asking more questions. Wouldn't it make you feel more safe to really understand the other person better, so that you knew what you were dealing with?
Yeah.
What about being able to be heard in a situation? If you can be heard, wouldn't you feel more safe and understood in that marriage, in a situation that's chaotic and we don't know what's going on? Like, see what I mean? It's really applicable across the board. No matter what you're talking about, it's all about, instead of feeling so vulnerable in a situation because you feel like you have no control, it's all about, what do you have control over? Using the wisdom from your past hurt instead of the trauma. Instead of taking the trauma from your past situations, taking the wisdom and moving forward and taking responsibility and control and ownership over your own role in being able to love. These excuses that we use in order to not be able to move forward with our lives are lies. They're lies. They're all lies. People are going to jump out of the bushes and kidnap me. Well, maybe if you're making terrible decisions, being out in the middle of the night alone with no protection in the middle of a city, that's much more likely than,
where there's people hiding in the bushes.
Yeah. but there's places where that probably wouldn't happen. Or maybe situations where maybe you're not out there doing that. Like, I'm in my home asleep at night. Probably not going to happen. It's just, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not putting yourself in situations where you can get hurt, but also, even if you do put yourself in let's say a relationship, where, like, well, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to be in a relationship. anymore. I don't want to talk to my spouse because they continue hurting me because they're going through this, and I'm hurting too, and they don't want to listen to me and they don't understand. So I don't want to put myself in a situation, in a conversation even with them, where they could say something hurtful. That's going to end where? In tragedy, right? It's going to end in divorce. It's going to end in something bad. So instead of avoiding all of these things and not loving, not living in love and peace, and letting God take the lead, right? Instead of doing those things, maybe let God take the lead. Maybe move in wisdom and forward in a situation where you can still be vigilant over yourself, but also taking the precautions and looking at the situation around you and understanding it outside what we originally started with, your emotions. All those things we just said, getting caught up in whether or not, like losing sleep over someone sitting outside our house, losing sleep over what's going on in your marriage over heart disease, not wanting to get in a new relationship because the last person hurt you, racism, whatever. It's our emotions dictating our reactions and responses and our actions,
Right.
which is never going to work out.
And the thing is what's really important.
Is it that important?
Sorry. Man. You guys, excuse me. I'm still getting over this. I had my cold or this virus, and then I had a COVID shot. And
he just hasn't all the way come out of it yet.
Yeah, so it's affected me. So I apologize. But anyway, my whole point, well, the point I was going to bring up is we really need to, yes, we need to take action upon it with love.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're having difficulty really with that, we need to take that to God, first of all. That's the first stop. We need to really lay it before him and ask him why you're going through this particular thing, or why is this being put before you and you're going through it, and how you can learn from it and how you can grow from it.
Mm-hmm.
About 9 months ago, I witnessed a hit and run accident.
Oh, yeah.
That was horrifying. Okay.
Yeah.
And I struggled with that. Because
you can't unsee it.
Well, I struggled with it because I've seen horrible things happen, but it affected me differently at this point in my life, I think. But what was astonishing to me, I think what really shook me afterwards, not only what I saw, but everything that happened in the moment. And if you guys weren't with us at the time, I'll try to briefly go over this. It was morning traffic. It was the sun wasn't fully up, so it was still dark.
Mm-hmm.
I had taken off to work early, but here in my area, traffic starts super early.
Yeah, and it
starts at 4 or 5 a.m. And I was in heavy traffic. Traffic was moving though, but it was pretty crowded on the highway. I was in, say, middle lane of a 4 or 5 lane highway, and I saw the exit that I was needed to go off. It was a different junction of the highway, so I was going to need to move over into this other lane. And just as I saw, I was about to glance over to my mirrors to see if I could move over to the other lane. I put on my blinker. I saw a pedestrian off on the side of the highway, walking on the side of the highway, the emergency lane that cars would normally park over to, right?
The shoulder.
And obviously that caught my attention because you don't see that too often, other than maybe someone's car broken down. It was just a pedestrian walking. And just as I saw this person, a car coming onto the highway, riding on that shoulder, not in the lane, hits this person. And I won't go into the description of everything that happened, but they hit them at highway speed. Um, so you could only imagine. Now, I know other people saw this because there were other brake lights that went on as soon as this happened.
Yeah.
You could hear it. I'm a good distance away, and I heard it. And so I continue moving on over, and I navigate my car over to the side of the highway. So by the time I stop, I'm about 100 yards or whatever from what I think it all happened, because this person flew into the high brush. The car went on. I didn't see where the car went that hit the person, because I was trying to navigate safely over, because it was, again, a lot of traffic.
But they left.
But so I immediately thought, because there were other brake lights and things like that, I immediately got on the phone with 911, started reporting it. I had thought other people had been calling in. I debated very quickly whether I should call, because I'm like, well, other people are probably calling at this point. There's going to be an ambulance here soon. Do I really need to do that? And I'm like, something told me, no, I needed to do it. I mean, it was like milliseconds. But I'm thinking the phone lines are going to be flooded with this.
Sure.
Right? No, it wasn't. I was the only person that called. I was the only person that stopped. I thought there was other people that had stopped. No one stopped.
No one stopped. No one called.
And I mean, I know people saw this, but they moved on with their day. And so, long story short, is I reported, I helped them locate the person, and they got this person to medical. They gave them medical care, got them to the hospital. They are still alive.
And they told Javie that if it wasn't for him, they don't know that she would have survived.
Right. And I don't know if this person ever did,
because they didn't really get back to him and tell him whether she did or not. But that happens a lot. They said that actually happens a lot. He had to go talk to somebody after that because he was so traumatized by it. And actually, I think when you were talking to this person, I remember you talking to them. I was there, but he talked a lot about, I was really traumatized by the hit and run. I was more traumatized by the fact that it was only me who called, that nobody, like the weight of that if I hadn't have made that decision, that person would have died.
Right.
And she said that, that's actually very common. It's the spectator effect or something they call it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically, it's a real thing where everybody thinks somebody else is calling, and so nobody does anything.
But the thing is during that time, I was instantly jaded about people, about where are we as a people, that we won't take time out of our day. Yeah, we're all going to work. I understand that. But a human being, their life has literally been destroyed before your eyes, and I was disturbed by it. Now, the weeks following, I had some difficulty even driving. I was a lot more observant. I was really so watching people. And it just kept playing back into my mind.
Fortunately, though, you're smart enough to get help and talk to somebody.
I got help. I had to get help to get past that, because it really was taking over me. It was unexpected. And so why do I bring that up? Because there are things in life. We're moving along with life. We think we have it all handled. We coach people, right?
Right.
And we have something happen to us that is unexpected. And we're just moving on with our life, and we're minding our own business, and something happens to us that is traumatic. And we have to recognize what is happening to us and not allow it to fester, not allowing it to live in live in us and overtake who we are and overtake our character, because I could have easily let that go and just tried to push it aside. And I guarantee you it would have jaded me about people. It would have affected the rest of my day. Well, it did affect my day that day.
But for much longer. I was, I want to cut in there really quick and bring up that your point, like drive your point home that I'm hearing is that these are some of the things that happen. As small as this may sound, it's not small, but like just a thing you witness. It's not even your own relationship. It's not your own family member. It's not your own personal tragedy. It's something he witnessed. But we don't recognize that as something that can damage us as humans and who we are in our character, to a point where if we don't address it, that could become a reason why you can't love. And you could easily put that out there as an excuse. Well, people just continue to da-da-da-da-da-da. And then you start projecting that on things. Your jadedness, your bitterness towards what you saw could easily have been a crutch for you to not be as loving towards people in general. And that goes across the board to anything that we experience, anything at all that we experience that's traumatic, that's stressful, that's chaotic, and that's hurtful, that's damaging to us. We could let that get in the way of who we are.
What the enemy does is he uses that as an opportunity to try to bring back up some of the past pain.
Yeah.
So
see how people are?
Right.
Like, oh man. Yeah.
So a lot of what, I spoke about, how I grew up a little bit. I witnessed a lot of violence. I witnessed a lot of people being victimized. And so that all came back up
immediately. Yeah.
And I could have let that take over my life.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I couldn't. Because I didn't want to go back there. God has brought me so far. And again, being aware that, look, Lord, why did you have me leave at that particular time in that particular moment so I could witness this? Yes, possibly to help that person. But what about now? What about all these other things I have to deal with? The thing is God is with me.
Yeah.
And I know that. And if I didn't know that, where would I have been?
Right.
So the thing is that we need to recognize that God is with you in whatever circumstance, whatever thing that we're going through.
Yep. Exactly. And he's there to help us love. That's the thing. And I think again, I'm so sorry I forgot about what we ended on yesterday, because I really wanted to go into it. I guess I'll have to listen to it and we'll go into it tomorrow. But God helps us to love. This idea that we have to have this all figured out and we have to have this nailed and we have to be the one that has all the willpower for this and the clarity. We just have to be, a lot of times with God, willing and accepting of his help, of his role, of his leadership, right? Of his relationship with us. And then when that happens, then he's able to do a lot of things because we're willing and accepting of whatever he's doing, right? He's able to work with us. So when we allow him to heal us, when we allow him to show us how to love, Lord, how do I love now after that? How do I see people the way you do after seeing the way they interact with each other here on earth? After seeing this horrific situation like you saw, or much worse situations like what we see on the news. Yeah. How do we let God show us how to allow love in our lives and our hearts for people? People talk about, well, I lost faith in humanity, and everything.
Oh my gosh. So just the other day when we were getting our COVID shot, okay? Look, people get off. You bring up the news. People get all caught up in the news and what they're hearing on all the talking heads and this and that, and then they allow their emotions of the situation to affect them in a way that they start drawing their own conclusions to things and make that their own truths, right?
Like it's fact.
And then they take it. This poor lady.
I know, the poor lady at the pharmacy.
This gentleman, he had, what he thought all his facts were, and he demanded that she do things his way. And she's like, well,
I can't.
that's just not possible.
Yeah, she like couldn't do it.
And so he could not understand that. He couldn't understand that she couldn't comply to his needs according to his way.
Because the news said so.
Right. Something that he heard on the news or heard on someone saying this or that about a theory that, well, then I need to take upon myself to do that. And somebody needs to comply. And there was no such thing of that type of protocol.
Yeah, what he was saying he wanted doesn't exist. And she's like, sir, I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. I can't do that. And he's like, well, if you won't do it, I'll find someone who will. And she's like, okay, bye.
So that goes back to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This guy wasn't calm. He was all about his emotions and how he felt about the situation.
And he was laying into her with
it. He was totally out of control.
Yeah.
Yet if you calm down
and listen,
okay, and treat people in love and not get caught up in this situation. Look, we've all been affected by this pandemic in certain ways. However, it can't be something that we allow to affect us emotionally, that we become irrational.
Yeah.
We need to see things as they are, as how God sees them, understand that God is in control.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Ultimately.
Right.
Okay. And see things in a calm manner.
Right.
Approach things in a calm manner. I guarantee you that situation would have worked out a whole lot differently, because he ended up walking out tipped off, and then affected that girl's day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. But he could have calmly.
He didn't act in love at all. No. I mean, he wasn't thinking about her. She was just a talking face behind a pharmacy.
He didn't treat her like a human being.
No, exactly. And that's really
how we treat each other is very important moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is how this whole idea of how do we love, like we said, I know I want to acknowledge today, by the way, I know that we haven't really just been talking about heart disease. I know we've been it seems a little all over the place, but keep in mind, we don't read ahead on these. We don't have a whole planned out, like, we're not here to school you and lecture you and train you on God's word or something. This is all of us doing these discussions together. We don't read ahead in that. We don't go through the whole thing. We basically look at the titles and we skim it and say, okay, this is pretty relevant. This is good. I think this would be a good discussion. And then we have, like, themes and things that we think would be good, but we don't read ahead. So when God starts speaking into these conversations, like yesterday when he was telling you, we need to talk about racism. It's like both of us were like, we what? We need to talk about racism. But we are here diving into this with you, going, well, how is this relevant to us, God? What are you trying to say to us, God? And so when we say, we tie things together because we're realizing in the moment how it ties together. We're not searching for a way to make this make sense. It doesn't always come clearly from God. He's saying, I want you to think about this. And it's always for someone. So there's always something that I take from it. I don't take everything from it, because not everything applies to me. When I'm saying something to you, sometimes it doesn't apply to me at all. And sometimes it totally does. And I know that's the same for you. So I just want you to remember that when we're trying to kind of break this down and unpack what God's giving us today in this, we're just starting with the structure and saying, what do you have? What do you have, God? And today, even though we've been all over the place, we've been talking about hit and runs, and we were talking about all kinds of stuff that doesn't have anything to do with heart disease. What I'm hearing loud and clear, I want to just end with this, is that God's like, let me show you how to love past all of these traumas, past all of these hurts and offenses that we all go through as humans. All of this stuff, all these hard times, this adversity, including heart disease. Okay? Because even those of us with heart disease go through all those other things too. It's not just heart disease. We're not here just to talk about that. We're here to talk about the things in life that hold us back from loving, the things that we let stop us from being the people that God wants us to be, and tapping into that humanity that we do have for others. We let that stuff jade us and stop us from doing it. And heart disease is one of those things. And it can be towards the world in general, or towards just our loved ones.
Exactly. So read that scripture right there at the bottom, the Proverbs.
Proverb, oh, right here.
Yeah.
A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:1.
Okay, so what we would like you to do today is go back over what we laid out this devotional. You have the Bible app. You know what we're talking about. Go over this verse, Proverbs, and I don't have my glasses on.
15:1.
15:1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and really meditate on that scripture. Apply it to your life.
Mm-hmm.
Apply it to every aspect of your life.
Right.
What happened to you yesterday? What happened to you as a child that you may be carrying on that's affecting your life today? And then as you're approaching your day, you move on with your day, think of this verse throughout your day and try to apply it.
Right.
Try to take action upon it. That's what I would encourage you today.
Yeah.
Look, I hope that maybe we were all over the place. I don't know. We just try to say what's on our heart, what God has led us to. Okay. But I hope you got something out of today. If you did, please hit like and share this with one another. Tomorrow, we're going to be here again, tomorrow morning on the 5th and final day of this series. So we hope that you join us.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing is that most of what is, I think, God's saying throughout this is in the whole series. So if you want to know more about everything that we've said, I mean, today was just one thing. We talked about being brave. We talked about, enduring, talked about having a soft answer. But we talked about a lot of other things with this week that God gave us, and it was really good. So if you want to know more about how to love through heart disease, it wasn't just today's episode. Make sure you go back and you watch the series, because there were so many good things that came out of the last few days that we just didn't touch on today at all. And tomorrow will be the same way. So make sure that you're going back if this is something that's really sticking with you and hitting something at home for you, because this is definitely for some people out there. This is something that God gave us that He wanted us to discuss. And I think it's really important, because a lot of people really let these things get in the way of them being who they really want to be, because we think we have to, and we don't, because
Right.
God is there to lead, and He's there to heal, and He's there to free us from that. So I think that's really important. And also, if you're watching from our YouTube channel, we love you there. Make sure that you're hitting subscribe so that you can subscribe to our updates. When you hit subscribe, you're going to get updated on when we post a new video, when we go live, things like that. You will get notified. Make sure you're hitting subscribe. And also make sure you're commenting, liking over there. We love your interaction. We want to have a discussion with you. And we always go back and we read these comments, and we make sure that we are answering any questions that you have. So we absolutely love you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
One last thing before we do go, just remember tomorrow we will be here having this discussion, finishing off the 5th day of this series. But afterwards, at 9:30 Pacific time, we will be going live with our new show, The Heart of an Underdog. And we have Kevin Chong on that. He is a warrior in himself. He has a great story. And we want to bring that to you on tomorrow's show. So please stay tuned on to that. Make sure you take some time out of your day. We would really appreciate it to watch and listen. This will later be on our podcast if you do miss it, but we always appreciate the interaction. It's a lot like this. You could come on and you could comment, and we bring that on the show. So if you have a question or a word of encouragement for our guests, we do appreciate that.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Stay tuned to that.
All right. Well, we'll see you tomorrow, guys.
All right.
Have a